All right, well, let's move on to a different result right now because, believe it or not, United's win over Leicester didn't seem like the big result of the day. It was one for Ipswich, and our great friend Paul Mariner definitely would be very happy to see his former club knocking down what seemed like a high-flying Spurs under Ange Postecoglou as well, and Ipswich getting a much-needed win. Don't want to take anything away from Ipswich, LME. Was this a matter of Ipswich just getting everything right, or did they encounter Spurs in a uncharacteristically woeful moment, especially at home?
Alexis, all I have to say is, why couldn't this Tottenham play Aston Villa last weekend? It's so annoying. It's the most Spursy thing to do was what I watched today against Ipswich. To your point, a lot of credit to Ryan McKenna's Ipswich because they worked very hard for this victory. And I thought when Tottenham came back with that goal, I thought, okay, here we go again. But in that first half and for the majority of the second, Tottenham were just totally different from last weekend. They're very uncreative entering the final third when it's not going their way. Sometimes they're very direct and aggressive and they like to recover possession, which is what happened against Aston Villa. They were in the face of Unai Emery's Villa the whole time, and it was great to see. Today, Ipswich played the game of, you know what? We're just going to sit. We're going to hold. I'm going to see your move first. And then we're going to counter and we're going to try and reattract. The lap was an absolute nightmare against Cuti Romero, and that does not happen often. Romero did not like it one bit, so it's kind of like fighting fire with fire. But this is just unbelievable how Postecoglou's Tottenham can go from, or really just Tottenham, because it's just so Spursy. You can just go from one great victory against Aston Villa to what happened today. Fair play to Ipswich. It was a really good win, but my God, like it was completely uncharacterized from what I saw last weekend. And I'm sure we will see this over and over and over again.
Yeah, Janusz, we don't expect Spurs to really give anybody that much of an in. Ange did say after the game that he felt like they just gave themselves a mountain to climb in, letting Ipswich go up with that first goal just 30 minutes in. And then suddenly you start to go into panic mode a little bit. But Spurs did have a chance to come back. Dominic Solanke did score. It was, some would say, controversially ruled.
No, it was a handball. It was a handball.
It was a handball. Janusz, your thoughts on the game, the moments, and where Spurs probably fell flat?
You know, we were just talking about United and their inability to score, right? I mean, 11 goals in the season. Here are Spurs scoring 23, which is pretty good. And it doesn't feel like it, does it? Like when I think of Spurs, I don't think of that. I mean, they've been missing, Heung-min Son for long periods of time. And okay, they get their goals, but that doesn't seem to be enough. Defensively, they're not great. And here's the issue, and I think, Eleni, you mentioned that, is that, for me, in general, even when they win well, like the game against Aston Villa, they don't look secure in the back for me. They just don't. Like, if you look at the first half, they dominated, yet, aside even from the goals themselves, right? And we can talk about, that overhead kick. I mean, two players, Brennan Johnson and Porro, just looking at, who was it? Smodics, I think, with the goal. And second wasn't that much better either, almost an own goal. But what I'm going towards, the first goal and the two players like Porro and Brennan Johnson, then Dragushin almost at an own goal, and he's had a tough time throughout his career. Every time he steps in, and that's not all the time, because Mickey van de Ven is gone, he always looks suspect, doesn't it? So defensively, it's hard to trust that defense. Even if you had Udogie and Porro, don't you think that they're more interested in going forward than they are in the defending? So there's more issues than that. And even Romero, whom I really, really like. I mean, two players that, I don't even want to go to Enzo Fernandez. We'll see. Maybe we'll come back next time we're talking about Chelsea. Well, he's not starting, but two players that I really love for Argentina. They seem to only play well for Argentina. Romero, I can't explain the way he plays at Spurs. For me, he's always nonchalant, tactically almost unaware sometimes. Decision-making is not great. And to me, overall, this is the issue I see with Spurs, because there is enough going forward, which we've seen. But I think defensively, there are always issues. And I don't know about you, LME, but even with the domination in the first half, I just felt that Ipswich were more dangerous. Goals aside, every time they went on a counter, it looked dangerous for no particular reason, really.
I mean, Alexis, I mean, we froze ourselves because that's what Tottenham does to us. I mean, there's nothing that
it's
Janusz
not
said
panic stations yet for Ange over this result. Because even Ange said it now, that he said in his post-match that there's nothing that he can address now because 13 of his players are all going overseas. So pretty much you wouldn't panic if you're Ange thinking too much about this going into the international break, are you?
It's about assessing what panic means to him. Like, what does panic, does he want a Champions League spot? Like, he better get it together because this can't continue. Like, all the points that Janusz said, I completely agree. What happens is when Tottenham push up with Udogie and Pedro Porro, they leave holes, acres, Grand Canyon spaces for you to attack. And that's what Ipswich did. Ipswich, who are trying to stay in the Premier League, with all due respect. So what's going to happen later in the season, which, by the way, let's not forget that the obvious, proverbial disease of Tottenham as the season continues is fatigue, right? And because they have the Europa League as well, they're going to have to be wary of that. So I wouldn't say panic in terms of, oh, you're going to be fighting relegation. I wouldn't even say panic in terms of, a mid-table. But look at that table, Alexis. How many teams now have 19, 18 points? This is a competitive top half of the table. And if you want Europe again, and if you want to compete, you got to get these defensive issues together. Janusz is spot on. Like, I hate the way Tottenham defend. I love the way they attack. But the moment they leave themselves vulnerable, better teams are going to not just win 2-1, they're going to kill you 4-5-1. And also the inconsistency, you got to fix that. So the international break could be good, but to your point, because so many players are leaving, your project has to come back to reset. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So there's a lot of good teams now. Newcastle's waking up. There's a lot of good teams fighting for Europe. So it's going to be intriguing to see what happens.
All right. Well, LME, Janusz, thank you guys so much for hanging with me for this one. Oh, plenty to talk about, but that's for Ruben Amorim and Ange Postecoglou to think about in the coming
you're just happy
days.
Because United won, Alexis.
I'm taking it in stride, LME. I'm surprised you even said that United should have pushed a little harder for your boy Ollie Watkins, but I would have taken Ollie, but
no,
I know LME would be crying under a bridge somewhere.
That's why I've only said it once, and it was today.
Alexis, look, between this and PAOK, 5 goals, 2 clean sheets. Good on both ends, right?
The clean sheets is what I am appreciating. Well, there's a big one coming up in the Premier League in just a few moments now. We're going to go and watch that. So if everyone's watching, please join us back on ESPN FC Live right here on YouTube after Chelsea up against Arsenal.